Hello and welcome to the missing piece that couples, therapists, and coaches need the most. So I'm Linda Kroll, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's take a breath and bring ourselves present. I want to make sure that you can hear me, and if you can, please put something in the chat to let me know you're here and that you can hear me. And if you can't hear me, put that in the chat too. So welcome. Let's take a breath. There's so much I want to share with you today. If you're a therapist, coach, mediator, attorney, clergy, counselor, there's often a missing piece in your training. So deep breath, and let's bring ourselves present. Because if we are present, we can then continue learning how to become better professionals. Because as a therapist, mediator, attorney, I actually have worked with thousands of individuals and couples over the last 35 years. I wrote the book, Compassionate Mediation, How to Add Passion to Your Marriage or Compassion to Your Divorce. And Dick Schwartz has called this relationship healing at its best. He's the founder of Internal Family Systems Therapy, and there's a lot of family systems therapy that goes into this with this process. So what is the missing link? Well, as a therapist, we're trained to help people heal relationships. As coaches, we can also do the same thing. As mediators and lawyers, we're trained to help people coming to, looks like we're having trouble in LinkedIn. Let me make sure we're going. Okay. So, taking a deep breath. There is a missing link in our training. If we're therapists and we have people coming to us for relationship healing, we are not trained to do divorce counseling or mediation or anything that's going to help them move that arrow in that direction. If we are doing coaching, again, we often don't have the training when someone's thinking, should I stay or should I go? If we're mediators or lawyers, we're just trained to help people head towards a divorce. But the missing link is there is a process to help people with emotional and spiritual healing, along with legal and financial information and support. And that's my compassionate mediation process. And I'll be talking to you more about that later. But if you would like to find out more, you can always go to lindakroll.com/roadmap, get the roadmap of my process, and then sign up for a 15-minute chat with me, because my certification is going to be starting next month, and I'd love to have you be part of it. But for today, I want to give you the missing link. Because when there's high conflict, we often lose our scope of what to do next. And often there is a question that's looming but nobody's talking about. And that is, do they want to stay or do they want to go? And as therapists, sometimes therapists feel that if we're doing marriage counseling and someone decides to leave, that we failed in marriage counseling. But here's the missing piece. If we make room in counseling for the ambivalent parts of one or both parties who has thought about staying or going, we expand the ability to go deep into what's true for them. So what might be true for a client, individual or couple, is that they secretly have thought about leaving their relationship, but they don't want to talk about it because they feel if they talk about it, they're going to blow up marriage counseling. If they talk about it, they're going to create an environment where it's not safe, because the other party will get too upset and then you don't know what to do. And sometimes what might happen is that you refer out too quickly, because if one or both parties says, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, you might be left with kind of an opening of what do you do now? And with compassionate mediation, you learn how to do it all. You learn how to talk about the parts that want to stay, the parts that want to go, the parts that aren't sure, because I give you all the legal, the financial, and emotional information that you can give your clients. So for instance, when I was going through my own divorce many, many years ago, and as I was going through my own divorce, I was missing the possibility of talking about what would happen if I stayed or go. Because my therapist was only doing marriage counseling. And when we were unsure about separating, and we did separate for a very long time, we had nowhere to go in that interim. No one to help us navigate that difficult time. No one to help us look at what would it be like to divide our assets, to sell the house, to co-parent our children. Because had we been able to compassionately communicate about all of that, we may have created something new. And that's the difference with compassionate mediation. It's more than marriage counseling. It's more than divorce counseling. It's more than discernment counseling. It's a combination of all of them plus. It's emotional and spiritual healing along with legal and financial information and support. And they don't teach that to us in therapy training. They don't teach us how to counsel the emotions in mediation training. As a lawyer, I wasn't trained on the psychology of what's going on. But compassionate mediation is the missing piece for all of it. Because oftentimes there's a hidden truth in your sessions. An individual may come into you and he or she may be struggling with anxiety or depression or eating disorders or troubles at work. And when you go deeper, you realize there's a problem in their relationship, but they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it because they don't know how to fix it, and they think the only alternative is to divorce. But in compassionate mediation, even when working with an individual, you can give that one person all the information they need to make informed decisions moving forward. And you can give that information because I give that information to you in the Compassionate Mediation Coaching Certification. So if you have an individual, this will work with an individual, and it especially works with couples. And I'm going to tell you about my first session. Because in my first session, I get to the bottom of what's really going on. I don't leave anything unspoken because they're able to talk to me about it in the first 15 minutes. That's the piece I want to be able to give you. Even if all you learn about compassionate mediation is in this moment, I want to let you know that it's out there, that there's a roadmap that you can get at lindakroll.com roadmap. And the roadmap gives you the overview of the whole process. So when you get the roadmap, it's going to tell you what I do in the first session. And here's what I do, both with individuals and with couples. And I do it all on Zoom. And I do it in 45 minutes, and I'm going to give you the overview right now. So what you're going to do is you're going to begin a session finding out what the individual or couple really wants. So if you're with an individual, you start right away. If you're with a couple, you put one of them in the waiting room. You work with each one of them individually. If the wife called you to make the appointment, you work with the husband first so he doesn't feel like you're taking sides. And you ask these questions. Here they are. What does your partner do that triggers you? How do you feel? What do you think? What do you do? If I were talking to your partner, what would he or she tell me that you do that triggers them? What do they think, feel, and do? And then I asked about their families of origin, just very briefly. Tell me about your family of origin. What was your mother like? What was your father like? And I'm listening for any family secrets. I'm listening to see if there was any addiction, if there was any abuse, if there was any divorce, if there was anything in their family of origin, including how many siblings they have and where were they in the sibling order, to give me an overview of their background. And then I ask them to tell me about their partner's family of origin. Because sometimes when they talk about their partner's family of origin, they have an opportunity to get a bird's eye view of what made their partner the way they are. For instance, if they're now sharing with you that their partner's father was an alcoholic, you already know that there was something missing in their partner's childhood that may have impeded their ability to be empathetic, to show up emotionally the way they might want them to. And with this bird's eye view, they can be more compassionate. And your goal in the first session is to help each party get to their higher self. And what does that mean? It means that we're helping them come from that calm, compassionate center that they usually aren't feeling in the middle of the discord. So I ask them, what does their partner do that triggers them? What do they do to trigger their partner? What is their family of origin, their partner's family of origin? Then I ask them the magic wand question. And here's where you get to the truth. I ask them, if you had a magic wand, what would you want in this situation? And sometimes what they want is to create a new relationship. They just don't know how. And that's where you come in. Other times they really are finished with the relationship and they just don't know how to talk about it. Again, that's where you come in. But either way, that magic wand question helps you set your GPS for how you can both help them individually and as a couple. And then before I end this 15-minute interview, I ask them if they have a word for spiritual. Because if they do, I use it. If they don't, it's fine. But for instance, if their word for spiritual is higher power, inner truth, universe, God, I'll ask them, where is God? All around. But it's also inside of us. And when we are in touch with that energy, that higher self energy, that peaceful energy, that God energy, that's the self energy that I show them how to bring to their relationship. And I do that in the first session. And I explain it this way. So let's say, and this is the piece I want to give you. This is one of many pieces I want to give you. Because when you know how to do this initial interview, it also gives you a way to explain what it means to come from their higher self. First of all, it gives them permission to talk about everything, because when you're talking to them privately and you tell them you can keep it private, you find out, are they secretly wondering what it would be like if they weren't together? And then when I get them back together, I give them this blurb. So here is my blurb, part of the missing piece that you can take with you. I tell them we all have a healthy self. And when we're in self, we are calm, clear, and compassionate. You know those moments? They're usually just moments because we're not always in self. We're in what I call parts. Parts that we exile, parts that we manage with, parts that we get extreme with. And what I help them do is to speak for the parts that they've exiled, to learn how to speak for their sadness, their pain, their hurt, their fear. Instead of managing by being codependent or hardworking or stoic or putting on what I call a pseudo-self, where they look like they're calm, but they're really feeling all these exiled feelings. And sometimes when they can't manage the feelings that they're exiled, they get extreme in some way. They eat too much, they drink too much, they get depressed, they get enraged, they go have an affair. There's different ways to manage and get extreme. But everybody's feeling sad, hurt, and scared, no matter what they're showing you. And as you normalize for them that they have both done the best they knew how to do up until this time, and you can help them do better, this is what happens in the first session. And then you use everything that they just told you in their initial interview to explain to them that one of them came as an older child and was very responsible, and the other one came from an alcoholic family that learned how not to talk about their feelings. But there is a way to compassionately communicate. There is a way to listen with empathy, and there is a way to talk about everything. And what does it mean to talk about everything? It means you talk about the parts that are ambivalent. You talk about the parts that are in limbo. Because in my 35 years of practice as an internal family systems therapist, mediator, and attorney, and a certified teacher of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda, from the thousands of people I've seen, the ones that I think are in the most pain are the ones who are stuck in limbo, who avoid the question, do I want to stay or go? Who make do with what they have, who settle with the relationship no matter how painful it is, who learn how to put walls up around their hearts so that they're not hurt. And then they judge themselves and their partners through old filters. And it goes on and on and on. Have you ever seen how some of your therapy, some of your coaching, no matter what you do, you get a little progress, but then it just slides right back? And that's because no one's talking about the missing piece. No one's talking about the possibility of an ending. But when you learn compassionate mediation, I give you those skills. I give you all the information about financial information, legal information. I give you handouts. I give you templates. I give you meditations. And we meet to learn this over a 3-month period. So I'll tell you more about it, but for sure it's something that would add to your practice. Not only to your practice, but it adds to your personal life. Because the people that take the certification use the skills that they're learning in their own relationships, and then that makes all the difference. And you can go to compassionatemediation.com/details and learn more about that. And I'll tell you more about it later. But let's get back to that initial interview. That initial interview gives you the tools to know how you're going to help them. And then I give you all the templates, the videos, and all the information where you stay one step ahead. So if someone is honest enough, and I tell all my clients that their first marriage is over, okay? It's a bold statement. I tell them their first marriage is over. It's not about fixing it or saving it. It's about creating something new based on who you both are now and what you each want and need. And even though that feels very direct and somehow hopeless maybe, it really gives some hope that it's not about regurgitating every hurt they've ever had and figuring out if they're going to get through all their wounds. We can process that. We can process what needs to be processed and healed. But in the meantime, it gives them a forward-looking viewpoint, not a backward. So they're not regurgitating everything that happened in the past. They're not projecting it in the future. They're not shut down. They're open to, oh my goodness, I get to create a new relationship. And I do promise them that if they continue to work with me, the relationship will be better than the one they have now, no matter what form it takes in the future. Because it will. Because we talk about everything. We talk about, does there need to be more marriage counseling? Does there need to be date night? Does there need to be individual counseling? Does there need to be a discussion about what would it look like to separate? What would that mean in terms of separating in the house, separating legally or without a legal separation? What other options do they have besides staying stuck? And that's what we do in the Compassionate Mediation Coaching Certification. We talk about how to be their best self, how to bring this higher self energy into their relationship. And I give you the guided meditation I do in my first session. Because in my 45 minutes of a first session, I've got 15 minutes with one, 15 minutes with the other, and then I put them both together, explain self in parts, and then I do a guided meditation. No matter why they're there, they both might be there to get divorced because I'm a mediator. But every session does this guided meditation where they get a felt sense of what it's like to be compassionate with everything they're feeling. Their hurt, their sadness, their worry, their anger, their blame, their judgment, their guilt. Be compassionate with themselves first, but then to be compassionate with the other people, their other partner, for the sake of their higher selves, the sake of their children if they have any. And that's in a 5-minute meditation that I give you in the certification. So we spend 45 minutes in the first session giving them the opportunity to learn that they can learn how to compassionately communicate. They can connect to their best self. They can learn how to let go of those limiting beliefs and judgments that they've been carrying around about themselves or their partner. They can unburden pain from the past, and they can relate from their heart. And you give them the hope in that first session that you can help them. And I give you the tools to help them move forward. Because in the next session, and sometimes even in the first session, I talk to them about the miracle of empathy. And I have a handout on that. I have a handout on the self in parts. I have a handout on the meditation. I have videos on all of this. But when we talk about empathy, we talk about using I messages, not you messages. Not you are neglecting me, but I feel hurt. I feel sad. And I lead them through this so that they can create a new relationship where they listen to each other, they hear each other, they understand and reflect that they now understand, and make amends. And once they've done that, you'll see that miracles are already starting to shift because they have been locked in patterns for years, often 10 years when they finally come to see me. And the patterns keep replicating. So when you let them know that you have the skills, all of the skills needed to talk about everything, to guide them from where they are now to wherever they want to be, even if one wants to be here and one wants to be there, you start the same way. You start by teaching them how to compassionately communicate, how to get to their best self, how to create a compassionate relationship, and then you teach them how to explore all their options. And all of this that I'm talking about is in my roadmap that has a video and a roadmap at lindakroll.com/roadmap, and you can get that at any time and find time for a brief chat with me, because here's the roadmap. And then you can also go to compassionatemediation.com details and get some details about the certification. But basically, in this roadmap, it talks about what do we do to get them to their higher self? How do we explain self in parts? How do we talk about their family of origin? How do we give them the space to understand there is a different way to communicate? And then I teach you how to teach them how to compassionately communicate, how to give them the miracle of empathy. And I have some handouts that I give them that I'm going to show you so you get a felt sense a little bit about what's in the program and what you can do. So for instance, here's my Self in Parts handout. And again, when we're in self, we're calm, clear, compassionate, but we're not always in self. We excel certain parts, including our pain and sadness, but this is the inner child. What about me? We manage by being nice, pleasing, caretaking, hardworking, but we put on this pseudo-self. And then we get extreme in certain ways. It makes its act out in certain behaviors that are causing themselves pain. And we teach them how to be in self, and when they are in self, they're calm, clear, compassionate, confident, connected, courageous, creative, curious, and you've taught them how to do that. Because no matter what they're showing you, deep down, they are hurt. They may have one foot or both foot out the door, but inside is an inner child yearning for connection, yearning for attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. And you're going to help them get there because the roadmap helps you follow along. And the training gives you all the tools that I put into my book on compassionate mediation, which Dick Schwartz has called Relationship Healing at its Best. I was an attorney, then a mediator, then I met Dick Schwartz, and then once I did, I realized that teaching people how to be their best self is really the goal of this process. And helping you be your best self is part of the Compassionate Mediation Coaching Certification. So what we do in the certification, it's a 3-month commitment. We meet twice a month for 2 hours, and you meet in between to practice with your cohorts. It's a very small cohort. I keep it very small because it's very intimate, very private, and I get to know you, where you are now, and how I can best help you. You get mentoring, you get guidance, you get the camaraderie of the group, and you get to know how to use this in your practice, how to use it in groups, how to offer workshops, how to become an expert in conflict resolution. You no longer have any missing pieces in your training. So if someone is in relationship limbo, you help them get out of limbo because you provide a forum for talking about everything. They don't have to make a decision. It's not that they have to decide they're going to stay in the marriage or they have to decide they're going to get divorced, because you have the full plate of all their options, including staying together, counseling, date night, prenuptial, postnuptial, legal separation, all the guidance in those interims. You can give them that information, and you can keep your clients for months and years because it takes a long time for them to decide. Then no matter what they decide, you can help guide them. And then if they get divorced, you can do post-divorce to help them co-parent their children if they have children, because they still need guidance on how to heal the parts of them that are still triggered by each other in ways that bring their highest self to the children, because the children often suffer the most. And what we do is we protect children from the shrapnel of their parents' animosity. And when we do that, then the children can heal. So you are helping families heal. You are helping couples heal. You are helping individuals heal, even if you're working with just one person. Because when you do that, you then become the expert. There's nothing missing anymore. The other thing that often happens to individuals and couples, and here's a missing piece as well, is that one, sometimes both, get stuck in a victim trap. Do you know those moments where one party just wants to complain and have you witness how badly they've been treated and have you straighten out their partner? And here's the problem. The fact that they want to stay a victim keeps them from taking any accountability on their own. And I often say to clients, often not in the first session because it would be too confrontational, but in the second session, I will ask them if they really want to learn a new way to communicate, because they may not. And I normalize that sometimes people get locked into being the victims because being a victim feels more normal than not being the victim. And we want to help them write a new story. We want to empower them to know they don't have to stay a victim. They can become the hero in their story. They can learn how to ask for what they want and need by knowing what they want and need, knowing they deserve it, learning how to ask for it, be willing to receive it, and stay grateful. And I give you all that information that you give them to get your clients out of the victim trap, because that's a loop that just kind of circles the drain and keeps them stuck. Often there's a fight that keeps going on because they're used to it. They do it in your office, you feel like you're refereeing, and instead, what's really happening is they're not talking about their pain. They're not talking about their sadness. They're talking about their judgments. They're talking about their expectations. They're talking about their disappointments. And we want to shift the focus to not what's wrong, but what would you like to see different? And then we help them know that we're going to help them get there, no matter where it leads. And if it leads to a separation or a divorce, we're going to help them do it with respect, do it with kindness, do it in a way where they can restructure their families and not break them, where they can create two loving homes where their children feel comfortable. I've done mediations for people where they have traveled together, where they have given parties together, where they do holidays together, even with their new partners, because they've learned how to be compassionate with themselves and each other. They've learned how to forgive. And forgiveness is a big one. I often talk about my spiritual graft, which I'll offer to you right now, because this is often a missing piece, that most of people's suffering because their egos are wounded. The parts of them that have expectations, which people have said are premeditated resentments. Not my quote, but I love it. Expectations are premeditated resentments. And when you have your expectations and they're dashed and you're disappointed and you're hurt and you're wounded and you feel terrible, you can put a spiritual graft, like a skin graft, over your ego's wounds, G-R-A-F-T. And you can be grateful, G, for what is. And even if you're thinking of leaving, you can be grateful for the years you had. Your clients can be grateful for their children they share. They can be grateful for the assets they've accrued. They can be grateful, and you can help them be grateful. The R-A is radical acceptance, meaning they stop fighting against what is and just accept it. This is the situation. What has occurred has occurred. Now we can move forward with compassionate communication, with empathy, with honesty, authenticity, with the courage to talk about everything. Because often the courage to talk about an ending offers people an opportunity for a whole new beginning. And that's what you help them do. So the graft, the spiritual graft, G, gratitude, R-A, radical acceptance, F, forgiveness. Forgiveness for themselves, for their partner, knowing that up until now they've both done the best they know how to do. Now they can learn a different way. And the T is trust. And it's to trust their higher self, to trust you, to trust this process, to trust that if they stay on course for what they want instead of what they don't want, you're going to be the one to help them do that. You're going to be the one that minimizes the conflict, that gets to the truth of what they're feeling, that asks a hard question. Because a hard question many therapists and coaches don't ask, because we think it might open the door, is we don't ask, do you want to stay in this relationship? And the problem is, it doesn't have to be a yes or no 24/7 answer, because people change their mind all the time. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're scared to, sometimes they love their partner. You will have all the pieces you need to make a safe forum to talk about everything. So each session that you're with them, you move them forward. You move them in the direction of their highest good. And you don't have to know what that is. You can't know what that is. You just bring your higher self in. And that's what we do in the Compassionate Mediation Coaching Certification, is we work on your self-energy. We work on what's challenging for you. We work on what's challenging for you in your personal life as well as your professional life. And I process that with you. So I use the benefit of my 35 years of experience as a therapist, mediator, attorney, spiritual coach, and I work with each of you in this small group to give you the personal expertise that you need for your practice. So whatever missing pieces, whether it's more confidence, more tools, more expertise, more outreach, more referrals, you find that in the Compassionate Mediation Coaching Certification. We are starting next month. If you go to lindakroll.com roadmap, you'll get the roadmap, and then you can sign up for a 15-minute chat with me. Because when we have this 15-minute chat, there's nothing to sell. I just want to get to know you and see if I can help you answer any questions, fill in any of the missing pieces. But if it does feel like a fit, then we will talk about the Compassionate Mediation Certification Coaching that's starting soon, so that you can get in while there's still spaces available. It is a transformational experience. You will hear from other people that have been in the group and what it's meant for them to be in it. Not just with all that I give them, that you have access to, the videos, the handouts, the templates, the guided meditations, the scripts, the cheat sheets, everything that you need to stay one step ahead of your clients. And I know with certification, sometimes it feels like a lot of time, you don't need it, but this is different. This is the training that you don't get as a therapist, that you don't get as a coach, that you don't get as a mediator or an attorney, and often as a counselor or clergy, is how to blend emotional, spiritual healing with legal and financial information and support. And my programs offer continuing education credits for therapists and coaches given by the National Board of Certified Counselors or the International Coach Federation. So I'd love to tell you more about it. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Otherwise, get back to me. It's been my honor for 35 years to work with thousands of individuals and couples. I found that in my own personal life, when I separated from my beloved husband of 20 years for some irreconcilable differences, and we were sitting in the courtroom many times in this typical adversarial divorce process, and my heart went out to him on his side and me on my side, sitting with our own pain and sadness and fear. And I told myself there had to be a better way. There had to be a better way to end a union of two people that once promised to love each other forever and could continue to love each other, even if they get separated or divorced. And that's how Compassionate Mediation was born. You can get a free chapter of the book that explains so much of what I'm talking about at lindakrollbook.com. So if you go to lindakrollbook.com, you can get a free chapter which talks about self and parts and more than that. Because when we got divorced, the pain of that, first of all, the pain of being in limbo for a long time, was sometimes worse than the divorce. At least the divorce, I knew where I was going. Limbo, I just spun for a very long time. I don't want that for your clients. I don't want that for you. And I found that as I was an attorney, then I became a mediator when I was looking at my own divorce. And then I found I became a licensed professional counselor and found Dick Schwartz and found the self in everyone. And when I put it all together, I was getting a lot of clients that were coming. Sometimes I was doing 3 or 4 a day. And what I realized was I was doing the same initial interview. I was giving the same handouts for empathy, and I could codify it. And that's what I did. I put it all into my Compassionate Mediation program, which is for individuals. And if you'd like more information about that, go to compassionatemediation.com. I have free gifts and resources for you there, so you can get individual resources, professional resources. But I put it all together in this process because I felt that actually I'm going to be 79. I'll pause. Yep, can't believe it either. And I don't want to keep doing this individually. I want to train others and give this all to you so that you can use it in your practice. You can teach it to others. You can share it with your clients. You can bring it to churches and synagogues and schools. There is so much to be learned here. And as Thich Nhat Hanh says, and I'm going to show you what he says because it's so important. Excuse me. He says, excuse me, to reconcile conflicting parties, you must simply have the ability to understand the suffering of both sides. If we take sides, it's impossible to work towards reconciliation, and humans want to take sides. That's why the situation gets worse. Are there people out there who are willing to go with both sides? They need not do much. They need only do one thing. Go to one side and tell all about the suffering endured by the other side, and go to the other side and tell all about the suffering endured by this side. This is our chance for peace. That can change the situation. And that's what we do in Compassionate Mediation. So I hope you will learn more. It really is a missing piece. You can stop the fighting. You can ask the hard questions. You can give a forum where people feel safe to talk about everything. And then with the tools I give you in the Compassionate Mediation Coaching Certification, you then stay one step ahead of your clients because you have the skills. There's nothing missing. You have the skills that if they are ambivalent, if they are in limbo, if they are struggling, if they make a decision to separate or divorce, you don't have to refer them out. Eventually they may need an attorney, but they have so much to process emotionally that you can help them with. And then if they separate or divorce, you can still help them because you are versed in all the subjects they need to talk about. So you help them be their best self, create a compassionate relationship, explore all their options that I give you, understand their rights and finances, which I also give you to give them, not as a lawyer, not as a mediator, just as someone who can bring up the subject of money and then work with all the feelings that come up around it and help them process that so they have the courage and the clarity to make informed, enlightened, empowered decisions for their future, and then truly create the relationship they desire and deserve. It's all in the Compassionate Mediation Coaching Certification. I hope today I gave you some tools that you can use, and I hope it motivates you to check with me some more, get the roadmap, and join me for a chat. Check out the details of the certification, which is starting soon, and get the free chapter of the book as well if you want to learn more. But I truly want to connect with you because I feel that the more people that learn this process, we can heal all relationships with ourselves, stop judging and criticizing ourselves, with our partners, with our families, with our parents, with our children, in our communities, and in the world. So understanding that we're all hurt, sad, scared, in pain, knowing we don't have to manage or get extreme in ways that are causing more conflict or more discord, and truly relating from our heart is the soul of Compassionate Mediation. I've been doing this for 35 years. It's my life's mission, and it would be my honor and my privilege to teach you everything that I know in 3 months in the Compassionate Mediation Coaching Certification. So please check it out. Thank you so much for being here. Please let me know if you have any more questions, and I look forward to staying connected. And from my heart to yours, I offer you namaste. Namaste. The light in me sees and recognizes the light in you. You wouldn't be here watching this if you didn't have a desire to learn more about offering the best you can to your clients. So I honor that. I'm honored that you're here, and I look forward to staying connected. Bye for now. Bye-bye.